magic in the air, wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find, spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know, we're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's the wizard show. Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray.
Is this the biggest scandal yet that Wizards of the Coast has dropped this week? Of all the scandals this week, is this their biggest yet? I don't know. You tell me, because it's time for That's So Wizards. That's So Wizards is filmed in front of a live studio audience consisting of Steve the Cat. What's up, my fellow nerds? It's Wednesday. It's about 8:10 in the morning. It's the 25th day of September 2024. It is cold, dark, and gloomy here at Site B. So let's add a little joy to your lives with this week's Wizards of the Coast scandal. And we got 1.5 scandals. Well, 2 scandals. Well, 2.5 scandals. First off, perhaps the biggest one for your Magic the Gathering players out there. Hey, remember Magic the Gathering? It's still a thing. In fact, it will never not be a thing, I don't think. I mean, it's easy as pie for them to make new expansions. So, I mean, really, come on. Especially now with the cross-promotion expansions. So, yeah. There's been some changes to the rules for the Commander format, and apparently Commander format players got upset because they're banning cards, and the whole reason that Commander / Elder Dragon Highlander first started was so people could play cards that they couldn't normally play, and so people could build junk decks out of leftovers and still make them playable. Now, if you're not familiar with the Commander / Elder Dragon Highlander / whatever it's called these days format, I don't know, because it's changed so much since I played Magic. I'm not even sure what it is anymore. Basically, the premise of Commander is you have one card that's your Commander, and all the other cards have may or may not have something to do with the Commander's effect. So the Commander starts in play, and then you can do things to affect the board during the game, or you can do things to affect the Commander directly. I don't know. It's all complicated. But when it originally started, it was a fun game, because I remember playing Highlander all the way back, like when Magic first came out. It was a fun way to just sort of play cards you wouldn't normally play, to, you know, your junk cards. And the main rule was you could only have one of each card other than land. So, you know, it was very clever, and I'm sure it's changed since then. But again, the whole point was they would never ban cards. If you had Power 9 and you wanted to play Power 9 still, here was a way to play Power 9. Not that anybody did that, but, you know, if you wanted to make a deck entirely of script sprites or whatever. So now they've banned it, and people are upset at Wizards of the Coast. How dare Wizards of the Coast affect the format that the players basically invented, whose whole point to just be as goofy as ever. Oh no, Wizards of the Coast did something else. Scandal, scandal, scandal. Except, of course, this one isn't Wizards of the Coast. This one is the organization that runs the official sponsored Commander tournaments that are held at game stores, which has very little to do with Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast makes Commander-themed decks, but that has nothing to do with official sponsored Magic the Gathering tournaments as run by Wizards. Commander is its own thing. It's got its own group of people, and they're the ones who decided you can't have these cards anymore. Now, there's nothing saying you can't still play that deck. You just can't play it in an official sanctioned Commander format. If you're playing Commander against a group of friends, go ahead and play the deck that has the banned cards. They can't stop you, which again is the whole reason why Commander was first invented. So you could just get together with some friends and play some goofy decks. So this one's not on Wizards. I mean, it's not to say that somebody from Wizards didn't whisper in somebody's ear, but it's not, I don't see why. I mean, there's nothing insidious about this other than just changing the format and keeping the format fresh, and maybe, you know, making the format more approachable for new players, where older players cannot just build power Commander decks, which would go against the whole point of Commander. I don't know. I haven't played Magic in years. Maybe it's changed. But that's the first controversy this week, which Wizards of the Coast has nothing to do with. Oh, no, scandal. Wizards of the Coast just cannot go a day without getting involved in a scandal of some kind. Hey, what's the next one? Oh, well, is this a scandal? I don't know. Is it? Because Wizards of the Coast has informed us that the official Dungeon Master's Guide previews will start on October 1st. So that means the previewers like Professor Dungeon Master, Bob World Builder, Nerd Cognito, the other guy, and what's that girl's name? The one who shills for 5e all the time. What's her name? Oh yeah, Ginni D. Ginni D will all get their copies of the DM's Guide October 1st to start doing promos of it and talking about it. Weird how just a couple days ago, Ginni D did a whole video about the 5e DMG, which got her in a whole bunch of trouble. It's like she knew she would be getting the 6e Dungeon Master's Guide relatively soon to place her in a position to compare it to her previous video. It's almost like she was setting up for the fact that when she gets the 6e Dungeon Master's Guide, she can say that, while I never read the 5e DM Guide, which, by the way, is not what she said, I have read the 6e DM's Guide. Again, that's not what she said. From cover to cover. And I can say the 6e DM's Guide is much better than the 5 DM's Guide, which is why I probably never read it cover to cover. You guys should really buy the 6e DM's Guide. Wow, you think that's something that she knew was going to happen? And as regards to all the people who made negative comments about her, and when I said you don't think she knows that she was going to get negative comments, and people said, oh, she doesn't know she's going to do that. She doesn't know she's going to get negative comments. She doesn't do it to get negative comments. Well, it turns out she knew exactly what she was doing because she made a post about it. So it turns out in this one, I was right. Because there was, we knew she was going to get one, and we knew she was setting up to build up on the fact that the 6e Dungeon Master's Guide will be the best Dungeon Master's Guide of all the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is why she read that one cover to cover, even though she never bothered to read the 5e DM's Guide. Mind you, again, that's not what she said. What Ginni D said, and I hate the fact that I'm in a position that I have to defend Ginni D, which most of the time I'm first in line to talk crap about her. But what Ginni said is, like most of us, she read the parts of the DMG that were relevant to what she was doing at the time, but she ignored things that didn't have anything to do with what she was doing. If she never needed the pie chart of how weather works, why would she consult it? If she never needed this information on page 33, chapter 9, then there was no reason for her to look it up. She looked up the stuff that was pertinent to what she was running, and she knew that stuff very well. But then, because she was inspired to read the entire brand new DM's Guide, she did. It's almost like she knew she would be getting the 2025 DM's Guide and be able to compare it to the 2024 DM's Guide / 2014 DM's Guide that she never bothered to read until just now. It's like she was setting up for a payoff. It's like she knew she was getting the 2025 6e DM Guide ahead of time to review. Scandal! Oh no! Let's take a break from Scandal to do a little job hunting, shall we? Do a little job hunting. How y'all doing today? Anybody out there feeling down on their luck? Maybe they've always wanted to work for Wizards of the Coast. Well, Wizards of the Coast is hiring a brand new senior manager for brand publicity. This will be replacing the guy sort of who left to go work for Seattle bureaucracy. I forget which department it was. I think it was the district attorney or something like that, or the senator. I forget. But anyways, the guy left Wizards of the Coast, wrote an unbelievably scathing letter describing what the working environment at Wizards of the Coast was like over the past 3 years, and is going to work for the Seattle / Washington state government, because this guy felt that working in government was a step up from working at Wizards of the Coast, as if he'd feel less sleazy working in government than he felt working at Wizards of the Coast. How bad must the environment for workers over the past year or 2 or 3 be that a guy would think, the double dealing, backstabbing, public manipulation, every awful stereotype of the government you can think of would be much better than working here. I'd rather go home feeling like I showered in gasoline and shaved with cigarette smoke than work for Wizards of the Coast. Well, they're looking to replace that guy. Why would they be looking to replace a guy in charge of publicity? I don't know. It might have something to do with the fact that they've had horrible publicity because they got rid of the guy whose job it was to control publicity. So all those press leaks and stuff like that people always base the controversies on. And I always say, oh man, if only there was a guy whose job, oh wait, you fired that guy. And then the other guy quit. Maybe you should replace that guy. Well, I guess Wizards listened and said, oh my God, I think the OGGM is right. We should actually hire somebody to do this publicity stuff so these bizarre things don't happen. Now, of course, the new employee will not get paid the same as the previous employee. But hey, that means it doesn't really matter how much experience you have. You have as much chance of getting this job that I do. So if you live in Washington, Renton, Washington specifically, and want to get a job for Wizards of the Coast, or if you live anywhere within the sound of my voice and have always thought, yeah, that's the kind of job I want to get, you can go to the Hasbro Now Hiring page and apply for the job. Good luck to anybody out there who actually does it. Okay, moving on back to controversies and scandals. We've got some controversies and scandals regarding the fate of the characters from the 1980s cartoon. D&D Beyond has a brand new free adventure featuring the leveled up adult versions of the kids from the cartoon, because Wizards of the Coast has decided to just completely ignore the fact that, that there was a final episode and what the creator of the cartoon has said. And I don't care what anybody says, they're not the kids, because I still think that what the guy who actually created and wrote the cartoon says is canon. Whatever Wizards of the Coast says is BS. But hey, if you've always wanted to run an adventure with these guys, you now can, because there's a free adventure for level 4 characters on D&D Beyond featuring the guys, because Wizards of the Coast continues to want to stand upon the shoulders of the people who came before it, all the while pooping on the people below them and building up the virtue signaling of how they've taken the creations of the cartoon guy, brought them into the 2025 6E environment and made them perfectly safe. Let's just ignore the fact that Bobby was probably trans. How else do you explain how a male barbarian was having a unicorn following him, where only unicorns follow virgin females? I mean, Bobby was trans. But nope, let's just ignore that. Let's not create anything new. Let's just keep rehashing old stuff, even though we have said we're not going to rehash old stuff. So you can get this adventure, but I'm going to spoil it for you by showing you the stats, because Wizards of the Coast, in their brilliancy that is Wizards of the Coast, has made the information free. Kind of like what they did with Vecna. So if you're wondering what the stats are for the characters, Bobby is a berserker barbarian with the farmer background, and he has a thunderous great club and a strength of 20. Okay, I'm not sure how a kid from 1980s America is a farmer, but okay, we do know that Bobby and his sister were a little bit, on the lower middle class rung compared to Eric, Hank, and Sheila and Presto, right? That was one of the things that they were always picking, that Eric was always picking on, the fact that Bobby and Sheila were poor and he wasn't. So I could buy that, maybe farmer, okay? The controversy, of course, is people have gone through these and gone that the stats and the abilities in no way reflect the characters as they were portrayed on the cartoon. And other people have said, yeah, well, it's probably the closest thing they could find. So while he's not exactly a farmer, it's the best way they could have described lower middle class. There is a commoner. So if you really needed to have a background, you could have just said commoner. Diana is an open hand monk. So the thief acrobat part of her life is completely forgotten. She is now an open hand monk. She's got the quarterstaff of the acrobat, which gives her I guess, the explanation for her acrobat powers in the game. She was a monk, right? I mean, even though they said the acrobat, she was a monk, because, you know, if you could remember, this came out when the new all classes came out, like Cavalier and Acrobat, and so they wanted to build up the fact that there were new classes, which is why Bobby was a barbarian and Eric was a Cavalier and she was an acrobat and not a monk. But I guess now she's a monk, and that one makes sense. That one makes sense. Eric is a champion fighter with the noble background, because I guess Eric was descended from kings, even though he lived in America. But giving him the noble background, I guess, explains the fact that he had more money. And he has the shield of the Cavalier, because they want to ignore the fact that he was a Cavalier slash Paladin subclass. Instead, now he's a fighter with a magic shield who, you know, Eric, I think, was always the least favorite, right? Hank, the hunter, is a hunter ranger with the guard background with his energy bow. Hank has a charisma of 10. And of all the things people have found wrong with this, the charisma of 10 is the one that stands out the most. Because everybody said, no, Hank was the man. You know, Hank was always the guy trying to solve problems with diplomacy. He was always the leader. He was always the one that was willing to follow Dungeon Master's plans, no matter how bizarre they were. I mean, I would say Hank's charisma was higher, but maybe he had a pretty low wisdom. They give him a wisdom of 14. I'd be like, nah, come on. He literally followed along with everything that Dungeon Master said and never once questioned. He said the one thing Eric had going for him is he was the voice of the audience. He was always like, why are we doing this? This is dumb. Dungeon Master, what the F is going on? And everybody was like, oh, Eric, stop picking on him. Stop being a jerk. No, I think Eric was the only reasonable one when you think about it, because Eric was the one who knew this was an effed up situation. It was like, let's just go home. And Hank was like, nope, we're going to do whatever he said. So yeah, higher charisma, lower wisdom. What is a guard? Why does he have the guard background? Did Hank work for the police force? No, I think that's to explain his athletics background, right? Hank was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed football star, right? We've got Nico. I don't remember Nico. Was there a Nico? I think he's like, I do, I don't. Wasn't there another kid from I don't know. Nico was in the figures, though. So Nico is a cleric with a hermit background, and she has a magic weapon called Nico's Mace. So they had to make up a brand new weapon to describe this character, because apparently, I don't know. And as a cleric, she's got an 18 wisdom. Okay. Then we got Presto, the evoker wizard with the scribe background. No, evoker. Presto was a conjurer or a wild blood sorcerer. He was always fucking up. And he has the hat of many spells, where he could just reach in. Remember, he could just reach into his hat and pull out random crap. You know, one time it could be a unicorn. It could be a sandwich. It could be a fireball. Sometimes it was useful. Sometimes it was useless. He was the most pathetic of all the guys, but he wanted to learn real magic and become, you know, actually useful. And he's the one that everybody said probably stayed behind. And then we have Sheila, who is a thief with the farmer background, and she has the cloak of invincibility and a dex of 16, because, you know, Sheila was always, boop, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to hide with my cloak. So, yeah. I mean, no mention of how Bobby has a unicorn following him around. I guess Uni's just gone in the future universe. Or how it is that a male kid from, you know, America, 80s America, had a unicorn following them around, when we all know unicorns only follow around virgin females, leading, of course, to the, you know, the conspiracy that, oh wait, maybe Bobby was trans and was a female presenting as male, and Uni knew. Oh no, God no, we can't have any trans kids in 1980s cartoons, because we know that that never happened, right? No, we can't acknowledge that, because Wizards of the Coast has the virtue signal and let us know now that, oh, by the way, But I mean, that should have been a given. Of all the virtue signaling Wizards of the Coast has done, that one seems like a no-brainer. Make Bobby trans to explain Uni. But instead, I guess Uni's gone. I guess they finally just ate him or her or it. I don't know. Mostly spot on. Some of the stats don't make sense. I don't remember Bobby ever berserking, but okay. Diana, a monk. Yeah, she was always a monk. Eric, what, a fighter? When did he ever actually fight? You know, Eric was a coward. He'd be more like a rogue or something. Hank's charisma being only 10? Nah, higher charisma, lower wisdom. Nico, I don't remember Nico, but I guess she was in the show, or at least she was a character that they invented to sell the figures. Presto was not an evoker. He was a conjurer or a wild blood sorcerer. And maybe, actually, I think Presto was a sorcerer because none of his magic required studying. He was learning to be a wizard. Yeah. And Sheila was a rogue because she was rogue. And yeah, they're farmers to explain the fact that they were poor because apparently Wizards of the Coast doesn't know that there is a commoner background. Okay, yeah, controversies and scandals. Controversy is a scandal. RPG Pundit asked, was D&D 5e ultimately a failure? So, you know, I have mixed feelings about Pundit. Sometimes I'm 100% behind him. Sometimes I think he is a straw man, egotistical POS who doesn't know anything about hobby or people. But he asked, was 5e ultimately a failure? No. No, it was not. Wizards of the Coast was the failure for how they marketed 5e. But 5e was a billion-dollar franchise that kept Wizards of the Coast and the gaming industry alive during the pandemic. Now, obviously, there are several factors that need to be addressed in a completely separate video as to why 5e was 5e and so successful, because on its own, yeah, no. But as for in regards to making Wizards money, yes. In regards to changing the industry, yes. As in regards to bringing attention to the hobby again, absolutely. In regards to making Dungeons and Dragons playable and approachable again, we'll talk about that in a separate video. And finally, for the final scandal, or lack thereof, of course, we've got the big one, the one everybody's talking about, the one that people can't seem to get out of their minds, and that's the digitization AI online marketplace. The future of Dungeons and Dragons, online, digital, VTT with the online marketplace. Now, if you've never played an online marketplace game like Path of Exile or Among Us or Fortnite, probably being the most famous, right? Basically, you can spend real money to buy tokens in the game. The token to real money ratio is either same or slightly better, like $1 equals 2 tokens. Though not always. I know some where you get lesser tokens than the amount of money you spend. But the tokens are the only thing you can use to buy these things in the game. And the things you can buy are all cosmetic. They don't really actually affect the game at all. They're just cosmetic things. If there's a magic spell and you want that spell to look specifically like a certain way, you can buy the cosmetic. If you want a cloak or a pet for your character or a mount, these are all cosmetic things that you can buy from the online store. And Wizards of the Coast is making it very clear that this is something that's going to exist because they don't feel that they can market Dungeons and Dragons anymore. Dungeons and Dragons isn't profitable. I mean, it was profitable all the way up to 2023, and then it stopped being profitable. But that's not Wizards' fault. No, Wizards didn't do anything in 2023 to 2020 till now to make D&D no longer profitable. It certainly didn't lose us $1 billion in quarter Q1. And I say us because I still have one share of Hasbro stock. No, Wizards. So yeah, Wizards has decided that Dungeons and Dragons isn't profitable, cannot be profitable going forward because, I don't know, that's our fault, not theirs. Certainly there wasn't a D&D movie, right? That never happened. So the only way D&D can continue to remain profitable is through this digital marketplace mentality. And you can complain about it all you want, but considering how much money kids throw down the pipeline to buy these cosmetics and other games, it'll be profitable for a short while. What Wizards isn't paying attention to is none of these games have wheels. The shelf life of these games is very short because the second another one comes along, most of the fan base jumps ship to get new cosmetics, gotcha games, as they call them, where you'll spend hundreds of dollars in the hopes that you get the one specific cosmetic for your one character. This doesn't affect the gameplay whatsoever, but now you can see Uni, the moon goddess, in her summer bikini wear. And oh yeah, look at Uni the Moona goddess with her titties in that tight red bikini. I watched Hakaru do one of these. So yeah, but how much money did that you spend to get that one cosmetic of Uni the Moon goddess? So yeah, short term money, long term they've already switched to a different game. So yeah. The shelf life of the cosmetic inventory is short, but it will make the money to begin with. In the long run, no. Will digital D&D keep D&D alive? No, because D&D has always been a let's play D&D in my room kind of thing. Will it attract more people to the hobby because now it's online? I don't know. I'm not sure on that one. It might not. That one's weird, But in regards to all the people saying it's a scandal, well, no, it isn't. See, a scandal is when you don't know something's going to happen and you're suddenly surprised. Scandal, turns out that guy was cheating on his wife this whole time and no one knew. What? Scandal, Wizards of the Coast sent Pinkerton detectives to that poor dude's house when he wasn't home to harass that poor dude's wife. Scandal, Wizards of the Coast is doing something they told you they were going to do in 2020 is not a scandal. This is not a scandal. Wizards has been telling you they were going to do this. Now, we could get on the whole Substack of the AI art scandal where Wizards said, oh, yeah, we're going to use AI art. Then they said, oh, God, no, we're never going to use AI art. And then they said, oh, oops, we got caught. But it was just one piece of, actually it was 3 pieces of, actually it was an entire book of AI art. But we're never going to, fuck it, yeah, we're going to use AI art. We have been using AI art, and we're going to be using AI art for the future. In fact, we're going to be using AI to pretty much do anything because we don't have staff anymore because we fired them all. And sure, we're going to hire new guys, but they're not going to be as talented or is ingrained in the culture as the previous guys. What culture, by the way, because we know what the previous employees are saying about the culture at Wizards. So, yeah. But, why do I need to hire 20 guys when I could hire 5 guys to do the exact same thing because now they're putting it online. And when things go wrong, I don't have to blame my guys. I can blame you for not supporting Wizards. It's your fault we're not making money, not our fault. It's your fault our product is now substandard because you're not spending money on our product. It's not our fault. It's your fault, right? That's something that Wizard would say. That seems like the future. We can bibbly-bopply argue about the digitization, AI overlords of what Wizards and Hasbro has planned, but they've been telling us they're going to do this for a while now. It's not like anything we say are going to change it. We just have to shrug our shoulders, kick a rock, and remind ourselves that at the end of the day, that's so Wizards!
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so Wizards. Oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell.